We start with all due respect. I'm going to jump in, and you all know which is number 4 on this list because there are no previous MVPs playing in this game. There are two teams that don't have the history in big games for quite some time. One of them, as we know, wound up a yard short of winning it all. Another one wound up being unfortunate in their 2 previous Super Bowl appearances, having to beat Joe Montana. I'm talking about the Bengals at the Titans. That is number 4 on my list of games that I'm looking most forward to. And Titans fans, I'm sure you're sitting there saying, oh, well, you've been pounding the table for the Titans, or at least some of you have heard me do that, and now I'm disrespecting them as the number 1 seed. I've just basically set up to tell you that this may have a lot of future stars, certainly from the Cincinnati side of things, and the Titans may wind up going to the Super Bowl, and, you know, then they won't be of the least interesting aspect of a divisional playoff weekend that they deserve the kudos to go get, certainly with all the injuries that they suffered. That said, now that I've said it, here are some interesting facts about this game. Derrick Henry's coming back, and we're all making a big deal of it, as we should. Guy finished with almost 1,000 yards rushing, and we haven't seen him in a few months. He finished 9th on the rushing list, and we haven't seen him in a few months. He's incredible, and he is a difference maker. But maybe we're looking at the wrong guy, because there's another guy on this team that's been banged up this year, and we've seen him more recently than obviously several months ago. But this team, the Tennessee Titans, are 11-2 when A.J. Brown is active and healthy. And we saw it against the San Francisco 49ers when he was a surprise dress and active player on a night, and he dominated. This is the guy, I think, along with Derrick Henry, clearly, is going to be the way that the Titans get through, because the Cincinnati Bengals are a red-hot team coming in with a red-hot quarterback in one Joey Burrow. Let's talk about Joe Burrow. He comes in this game in the last 3 contests, 1,200 passing yards plus, 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in a 3-game span. In the history of the NFL, the number of quarterbacks who previously had over 1,200 passing yards, 10 or more touchdowns, and no interceptions in a 3-game span are nobody. Joe Burrow's the first. That's how hot this quarterback is. Nobody's ever done that over a 3-game span. Against Baltimore, Kansas City, and Vegas, the key here is those were all in the jungle. This one is on the road. It's the leadoff game of divisional playoff weekend. Number 3 on the list, I went with the nightcap on Saturday. And I know that I'm going with the 1 seeds as 4 and 3 on this list. But I'm going with the Packers and the 49ers as number 3 on this list. Even though so much is on the line with Rodgers, could you imagine if Green Bay, after all of this and that, the this being the regular season and the that being the non-playing season leading up to Rodgers showing up for the this, could you imagine if they are one and done by the 49ers just like the Cowboys were? And what that would mean in terms of Rodgers' short-term decision and then, of course, his overarching legacy. He's still going to be the number 1 quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, in my mind, on so many parts of the stat sheet. And he's still going to be, you know, one of the best of his generation, but he still won't have has as many Super Bowls as Bart Starr. I'm front-loading the conversation if we come on the air on Monday and Rodgers isn't a playoff victorious quarterback this weekend. So there is a lot on the line. It's a rematch of the 2019 NFC title game. Matt LaFleur with a win. Let's be positive here for a moment. With a win, he would be the second coach in the Super Bowl era, since 1970, to reach 3 straight conference title games in his first 3 years as head coach. The only other coach to go to a championship game in his first 3 years as a head coach in the NFL is Jim Harbaugh. Yes, that's correct. Nobody else would be able to come out of the gate quite like those two if LaFleur gets there. Now, one thing to look at for Green Bay, and my whole commentary so far has been Rodgers focused because it's a quarterback-driven league, and this is the guy we're expecting to go back-to-back for the MVP. But it's the defense, folks, for Green Bay to look at. In Rodgers' 20 career playoff starts, folks, the Packers' defense has given up an average of 26.6 points per game. That is the most points per game given up by a defense for any quarterback that started 10 or more playoff games. And Rodgers is going to start his 21st. Against the Niners, he's never beaten the Niners in the playoffs. You know why? Because the Niners have averaged 35 points per game in those 3 games. So look at the D. And if the Niners are struggling on offense, very good sign for Green. I know we're going to be focused on Rodgers and Adams and the run game. It's the defense. Stupid, I guess. So keep an eye on all of that in that rematch of the 2019 NFC Championship game that the Niners, I think, still, Raheem Mostert hit his head on the goalpost just again 5 minutes ago from that one. Number 2 on this list, I am going with the kickoff on Sunday. I'm going with the Rams and the Buccaneers. Tom Brady's playing in this game, folks. Will we have in this game the Rams winning, meaning we would have a new champion in the NFL this year? Also, if the Niners pull off the upset on Saturday night in the freezing cold of Lambeau Field, this game would be for the right to host the NFC Championship game, adding a little extra layer of all of this. Now then, some interesting facts going into this one. Sean McVay, with the win over the Cardinals, tied John Robinson for the most wins by a Rams coach in the team's postseason history. If he wins this one, he'll be the winningest coach in Rams postseason history. And I don't know if you heard, he's not yet 40. You know who is 40? The quarterback of the Buccaneers. Brady's going for his 10th straight win in the divisional round. Let me repeat that. He's going for his 10th straight win in the divisional round against the quarterback who's making his first ever divisional round appearance. And interestingly enough about Stafford and Brady, we all know about Stafford and his legacy conversation. He's got the numbers for Hall of Fame trajectory. He just doesn't have the playoff wins. This is the, I guess, career-altering run that he could be going on, defeating Brady and knocking out the Bucs with Aaron Donald going up the middle along with the rest of that defense of an offensive line that is banged up. That's clearly the key in this game. And we got Jalen Ramsey on the back end of our show on this defense. He's on in hour number 3. But it's just the third postseason game in the history of the NFL where both quarterbacks coming in had 40 or more touchdown passes in the regular season. Brady led the league with 43. Stafford was second with 41. The other 2 games, last year's NFC Championship game between Rodgers and Brady, and the 2011 wildcard game, get this, between Breeze and Matthew Stafford. How about that? So both quarterbacks in this game have already played in the previous such contest, and this is the third only such contest. Can't wait. Number 1 on the list is the finale. If you've noticed, I've gone in order here. That's just the way it's worked out. Yep. And I think the NFL kind of is building up to Bills and Chiefs. And it is a credit to both of these franchises that they are the number 1 game to look forward to of a divisional playoff weekend, and Brady and Rodgers are in 2 other ones. It's because of these 2 young quarterbacks, folks. It's because we've never seen a playoff game played in the NFL with both quarterbacks coming off of 5 touchdown performances from the previous week in the playoffs. We've never seen that before. This is the 7th time, interestingly enough. How about this for the Bills? This is the 7th time a team has had a chance to eliminate both a Belichick and an Andy Reid coach team in the same playoff. Okay? The previous 6 times, after knocking off one of the 2, the team that tried to complete the sweep was 0-6 in trying to complete the sweep. It's never happened before. Now, I'm betting that's somebody beating an Andy Reid team, right, and then losing to a Belichick team maybe in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl, because the NFC and the AFC team. But the Bills have a chance to do something nobody's ever done before. Both quarterbacks are so good. Here's how good they are. They're both this young, and they're both earning that much money, and nobody's batting an eye. Nobody's batting an eye. They're that good. And Mahomes could be to Allen what Brady has been to Mahomes. And now with Brady out of the conference, this is the quarterback for Allen to go through and get to the back row and say, king me. I'm the king of this conference, to prevent the Chiefs from getting to a title game again for a fourth straight year. Which would, by the way, make Andy Reid the first coach to make a championship game in a conference 4 years in a row in 2 separate conferences. That's never happened. And how about this for the setup as well? Last division round game, that was a rematch of a championship game from the year before. We all know that the Bills lost to the Chiefs in the championship game last year, and there's that famous photograph of Stephon Diggs watching the ceremony. The last divisional round game that was a rematch of the championship game the year before was the 2004 divisional game between the Patriots and the Colts, Brady versus Manning. And this, to me, is this generation's version of Brady versus Manning. And the time before that was the 79 divisional round between the Cowboys and the Rams. It's so rare what we're seeing, and that's why that's number one on my list of most fascinating divisional games. Hopefully set the stage for you. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.